At Learn Tourism, we're dedicated to empowering tourism professionals, frontline workers, and communities through transformative education. Our mission is simple but powerful: to build a better, more inclusive, and sustainable tourism industry, one learner at a time. Our goal is to make every learning experience transformative, engaging, and accessible, so people don't just gain knowledge, but the confidence and skills to apply it. We are nerds with a passion for learning. Our specialties include tourism ambassador training, custom workshops and courses, learning management and technology support, and fractional consulting. We also provide keynotes, educational sessions, and exceptional industry speakers at regional, national, and international events throughout the year. Want to learn with us in real life? Then save the date for March 9th and 10th, 2026 and attend our Learn Tourism Conference. Get hands-on learning with people who share your passion for travel and community. Join our movement to transform communities worldwide through education and make learning something people love to do. Discover what's possible when we explore and grow together.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I just launched a poll if everyone wants to start answering that. As we've got everyone joining this first couple minutes, I'd love to hear about how you are engaging with AI.
Welcome, everybody. This is going to be a fun conversation. Sarah, thanks so much for making this happen.
I really appreciate having you all here. Please feel free again to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from. And I can see a lot of you are checking out this survey right now, which is great. So what's amazing, and I'll just share this with our panelists before we begin, about 60% of folks are using AI on a daily basis. About 30% of them are using it weekly. And then we've got 15 to 20% that are either monthly, quarterly, or they haven't really touched it at all. I can also see that ChatGPT is the winner with 92% of people tapping that. But we've also got really good use of Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot. Some people are playing with Claude and Anthropic tools. And then a lot of folks, of course, have CRMs now that have the AI built in. They've got design tools where the AI is built in, and even things like marketing platforms like Jasper and Blaze. And then I asked everybody how they feel about AI, and so far it looks like about 30% of folks are feeling excited, hopeful. About 30% of the folks are feeling concerned. 10% are feeling confused. 17% are feeling inspired. And then about 30% of folks are saying they've got all the feels together. But I love seeing this. I'm really excited to see that as people are answering the poll, no one says they're stressed. So that makes me delighted.
That's pretty awesome. Wow.
Yes, we're maybe confused and concerned, but we're not feeling too stressed. So that's amazing that we're seeing that happen. So to get us started, I just wanted to touch on a few things and welcome some folks. And I'm going to share my screen really quick and give you a little bit of information. Then we're going to dive in to our panelists and questions. But for those of you that are new, this is the Learn Tourism Talks webinar. We are here every month sharing a wide variety of information about the travel and tourism and hospitality worlds. We're also the producers of what used to be the DIY Tourism Conference and is now the Learn Tourism Conference, which will be coming up in March of 2026. So if you're attending today, you will get some information about that after our webinar today. Also, at the end, I'm going to provide you with some information again about our upcoming webinar next month on November 12th. And then I'll also be asking everyone to give feedback about this panel today, what you thought about it, whether or not it was helpful to you. We'll revisit this at the end again so that you can share your feedback. But I want to start us off today by letting our panelists introduce themselves. And I'd love for you all to share your name, what you do, but most of all, how has AI been something that you've had to embrace? Is there a specific challenge or goal that brought AI into your world? Is it something you've always been involved in? Just a tiny bit of your background in this topic. And we'll start with Barbara.
Thank you so much. Excited for the panel today. I'm Barbara Karasek. I am the CEO of AiOpti Media. And AiOpti launched last August to be exact. So we're 14 months in, and we are a first-party, data-first marketing intelligence and activation platform. And we built it to help brands unify their data, particularly their first-party data. We optimize media performance, and we prove measurable business outcomes. So it's data, media, and measurement. And we built that tech stack for tourism and non-tourism and industry partners and brands. And artificial intelligence actually is throughout each of those tech stack verticals. So it works within the tech stack and actually through the stack. And we're really embracing machine learning and artificial intelligence, not to replace anything that we do, but to help maximize the performance of what we do, but most importantly, why we do it.
Awesome. Thank you. And really quick, Barbara, just for folks that are new, could you very briefly just share, what do you mean by tech stack? So everybody knows what we're talking about when we say that.
Yeah, great question, right? And there's no right or wrong answer when you think about a tech stack, but it's intentional tech partners that stack independently or together as a process to achieve a particular outcome. So we have tech partners for our data, right? So with data, media, and measurement, we have tech partners that are within the media vertical or column, if you will, stack. And then we have our measurement stack as well. So we work with many different tech partners as part of what we call just our tech ecosystem for our processes within the vertical of data, media, and measurement, and then through each of the vertical platforms. So we look at all of that, a tech stack individually by intention, but also the tech partners that allow us to go seamlessly amongst the vertical tech stack partners.
Thank you for that, because I think that's a word that we're throwing around a lot, but a lot of times people don't know exactly what do we mean when we say that. And actually, you get to build it. You get to build the tech stack, so you get to put things together.
Yeah, we spent over a year building it.
That's awesome. Next, could we have Santiago go?
Yeah, with pleasure. Thank you very much as well for the invitation. Really excited to be here. My name is Santiago Rodriguez. Right now, I am also Vice President of Tourism Research and Strategy in Herman Global, which is a mostly remote company in the US and Europe. And we do all type of research and help destinations create content. And of course, AI has been playing a very influential role more and more on that. Also, I have over 25 years of experience in tourism, working with communities and professionals. I was born originally in Ecuador in Latin America, but I'm now here in Europe. And during these 25 years, I've been collecting a lot of ideas and frameworks on how to process data, planning, creating content, etc. And then I've been always a tech advocate, but I'm not a programmer or anything. But with the new conversational AIs, like from 2-3 years ago with ChatGPT and all of those, I suddenly became a programmer. I could create my own AI tools only by writing orders in human language. And I also developed a set of 9 free AI tools that help professionals and destinations go from insights to a content marketing strategy, and 9 AI tools. What I'm doing here is just trying to help professionals make the most what they can with AI. And if people would like to access these 9 free AI tools, they can find it here in my website.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's one thing. I'm a tech hack. I'm not really a programmer, but I know a lot about programming. And yeah, the AI world's opened up a lot of stuff. All right. And finally, Josh, you could take a minute to introduce yourself.
Yes, thanks, Sarah. It's so great to be here, and certainly great to get to talk about technology. And for me, it's all about facilitating human connection, right? If our technology, as Barbara was even talking about, if our tech stack, the collection of tools we use to accomplish the goals we're trying to accomplish, if they're not facilitating human connection for us, then they're really not doing anything at all. So much of my mission, really through Main Street Mentor, what it was through Zartico, what it was through the travel and tourism, Visit Franklin for many years. I've been in travel and tourism space for over 15 years. And prior to that, I was in the live entertainment space for over 15 years. So really have had a fascinating curiosity for the way things work. I blame it on loving Legos as a kid, just loving building things and taking them apart and seeing how component pieces work together. And I brought that forward. And it's just been one of those consistent themes, right, throughout my life and career to generate and work with partners to generate true, authentic human connection at scale. And that's really what the power of AI gives us today. So really happy to be here and just full of gratitude, Sarah, that you are creating these spaces for this beloved community.
Thanks so much for that, because I'll just say this is my ultimate nerd fantasy. Is to sit down with you all and be like, I get to just listen to what you have to say because there's so much to talk about. So I want to remind everyone while we're going through today, please feel free to use the Q&A. I will also be monitoring the chat, but if you'd like to make sure your questions get answered, pop them in the Q&A. But we're going to start with one that I think is a broader question. So I realize I'm asking a big question here, but if you wanted to help people focus in, and I want to be clear whether they're newer and they're just asking these questions, or maybe they're a little bit down the path of AI, right? They've already been implementing it in some way. What do leaders and people in various positions in any business need to consider when they're looking at implementing or expanding their use of AI? Like when you all are helping people go down this path, are there main things that you're asking them, big questions or auditing things that you really feel like they have to consider these things before they go down the path of implementing or expanding what they're doing? And let's go ahead and start with Santiago.
Thank you very much. So I think the most important thing, and I should say for context, I am on a daily basis talking to one or two professionals in different areas in tourism, right? All the way from CEOs to solopreneurs from the US, Europe, or Africa. I see a very broad range of challenges and needs and attitudes towards AI, right? By something that is very, let's say, common to all of them is that they really need to be sure to make sure that the people they're working with, their staff, are open to have a critical thinking and an attitude themselves as a leader in order to really leverage AI. Because right now with AI facilitating a lot of the processes that humans had to do before, the place for humans are to become this leader, this critical thinker, to actually be able to extract the best and the most from AI. Otherwise, people will just get like generic answers, and the people in many professionals in organizations where AI is coming, they feel afraid. They feel afraid of what AI can do. And it's just because they are not open to really learn how they can leverage their own skills with AI, right? We've been filled by media of all these fears that AI will replace you, AI will take your jobs, AI, et cetera, et cetera. But I like to say that AI is at the same time like a super smart kid that can remember a lot of things and connect a lot of things, but in another sense is very naive. So it's like this super powerful kid that needs this leadership, expertise, and especially people as like senior positions or people over 40 who have more experience are actually the ones that I think have the biggest potential to leverage AI professionally, individually, and to grow professionally, because that experience is the key that will make you leverage AI, right? Short answer. What do leaders need to consider when planning to implement or expand AI in their organization? The attitude and preparation of their staff to embrace AI.
Yeah, I love that because I'm teaching in a lot of my classes. I deal with people of all ages, and so many times people that are my age or older will be like, I'm not that technical. This isn't my thing. And I'm like, we got to get rid of that mindset. If you had 20 years in your career and you're aware of problems that need to be solved, actually, you could be one of the greatest people contributing to the ideas.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And I'll just add to that. I come from a risk averse position with AI and working with 60 different CBBs and DMOs and destinations, and they're all different legal structures. Some are county, they're state, they're city, they're a nonprofit, they're a private-public partnership. You have to really look at the root of what you are allowed to do. Some of the counties we work with aren't allowed to have any interaction with AI at all whatsoever in open source online, but they may use it in their personal phones or personal things. So you always want to check what you're legally are allowed to do. Two, I would say, if you don't know, make sure you ask, because that can get you terminated from your job. When we try to counsel our clients in that regard, is protect yourself legally as an individual, but also for your organization. And two is have a policy. If one does not exist for your department, your division, your CVB, your DMO, and it doesn't exist for your county or your higher level organization or you're at the enterprise level, make one. It can always change, but you need to have a policy in place so that everybody in your peer group, in your organization is singing from the same hymnal so that there's accountability. Everybody knows not just what to do, but what to avoid, and that there's some guardrails in place. So I would say, to me, we're very conservative when it comes to artificial intelligence, particularly when it relates to open source needs. And everything that you do within that function also can be subject to public records request as well. So your crumb trails and your thumbprint, there's also a fiduciary and a legal responsibility that we have to counsel our clients to make sure that they are minding their P's and Q's out of the gate. Not a topic everybody likes to hear, but it's needed and necessary, and it's not a problem until it becomes one.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you mentioning that, Barbara, because that's something I think we have folks on the line today that are from all sorts of different places and industries, and it really is dependent on what you're involved in that you need to ask those questions ahead of time and kind of understand what are the parameters. I've taught in a lot of regulated industries, including the legal field and the healthcare field. And that's something even before AI was part of the discussion. It's like, we always have to remember, make sure you're aware of what you're responsible for. And what about you, Josh? How are you helping people, plan to implement or expand? What's the most important things you're talking to them about?
Well, very similar to Santiago and what you're sharing. I'm brought into conversations every day with executives and leaders, certainly in tourism, Main Street chambers, even in nonprofit small business sectors, right? The Main Street economy broadly. And, what I'm listening for are really the question beneath the question. And by and large, every time, Santiago, you're exactly right. These conversations are not about technology. They're actually about culture. Barbara, you mentioning the word risk is really good. That's what I was preparing to share because most people, humans, right? Let's talk about human behavior, are risk averse. We are comfort seeking creatures, which is why these industries that we're blessed to be able to talk about today are very risk averse to adopting new technologies and innovate. That just sets up need for cultural conversations inside the organizations where we are, for leadership conversations to talk about who we want to be. What is our destination telling us that they want us to be is a major input into these conversations. And so really the technology is going to take care of itself because most of us on this call are not going to be the coders, right? They're not going to be the ones bringing new tools to market. We're going to leverage those trailblazers that are out in there, that are out in the market somewhere, that are seeing the problem, seeing the opportunity, and solving it for us. They are creating the applications, the wrappers around the AI to make solving our problem simpler. That's the mechanism that's happening in the marketplace. But for us, our job really is in thinking about connecting and stewarding our destinations, our locals, understanding who we are, where we want to go when we grow up, right? Those are the meaningful conversations that have to be happening and being revisited at every iteration of cultural movements. So that's really the crux that I find we're having conversations around. And I tell our partners and our team members, it's like the technology adoption is going to take care of itself. Everything's hard until it's easy. Right? Everything is hard until it's easy. So every change, every new thing that we're going to do or think about doing will be hard at first. And then it becomes easier. That's not what we're talking about. What we want to really think about is what are the obstacles to the change management? What are the blockers to being curious about our own human behavior to want to adopt the things? Because here's the ultimate bottom line for us. Our visitors, our stakeholders, they're the ones that are going to demand that we adopt these things as fast as possible because they want comfort. They want to know when they want to go on a trip, can we be responsive enough to them to answer their questions? And if we're not, they're going to move on to the next one in their choice, right? So the visitors are the ones that are going to force us to adopt the technology in ways, and we need to be listening to that data and listening to their engagement in order to be as responsive as we need to be.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I'll tell everyone before we started the webinar and invited everybody in, I was talking to our panelists and we were saying that now's a great time to just ask as many questions as you can. And don't, it's okay to have all the feels about the situation. It's okay to ask every question. There's no dumb questions. It's okay to have a whole bunch of conversations with the people on your team or your vendors or whoever it is so that you can try to understand the landscape. And as soon as you understand the landscape, it's going to change because that's where we're at right now. So that's why Stephen and the Learn Tourism team and I talk a lot about how the importance of learning has always been there, but it's really important now. So I want to dive into just a few individual questions for you all. I'm going to start with you, Barbara. And AiOpti is doing, in my opinion, some of the coolest work that I've heard about over the last year. And so I want you to just share, you work on something called closed loop attribution, first party data, and even what we call the closed loop creative acceleration. I know these are big words to a lot of us, but I'd love for you to share, what does this actually look like in real terms, in practice? And why is it so important for people to be aware of this? I've shared with folks in past webinars the value of first party data, but I think you and your team are taking it to the next level, which is exciting.
Oh, I appreciate the question. As it particularly relates to AI and machine learning, we find it's best to work in that closed loop environment with other outside resources populating information. So we look at first party data as data is dollars, but it's also the number one foundational component for destinations, brands, et cetera. AiOpti works within travel and tourism, but it also works outside in grocery, retail, consumer products, et cetera. The closed loop acceleration means that we don't just stop proving attribution. We use the same attribution insights to immediately fuel smarter and faster creative iterations. So if you look at those three buckets or stacked partners of first party data and data, media, and then measurement, we look at ways to maximize the campaigns because the creative is informed by what they're learning in real time. Right? So we uncouple. So imagine your creative is Mr. Potato Head in our programmatic media, and it's coupled and decoupled and then put back together based off real-time performance within the first-party data sets. So if you look at things linearly, data is your first domino and the most important, media, and then measurement. But the media and the measurement keep fueling your first-party data to then seamlessly optimize not just where the media is being served and to whom, but the creative that's being served at the same time. So we're able to actually look at that in a closed loop environment because it's all fueling itself. We're not taking information. Yes, we have 2,300 data points that help provide external insights, but we rely on the first party data of what we're learning in real time to continue to optimize performance. We also make sure that the loop stays closed. And it's very tempting, right, to open it just a smidge, but you really can't. Whether it's creative needs or saying no to a particular media tactic, if it's not performing, we're not going to introduce something outside. We call it, we don't want any outside parasites. They can live out and kind of live on the periphery or sit on our shoulder and observe and eat and get all of the good nutrients from what AiOpti is building, but we won't let them in. And that's a really important piece, is to always make sure that the doors are closed to your closed loop environment and its performance. So we didn't just build a different mousetrap, we built a better one. And it's important to maintain the walls up. That's the most important thing. Did you ever see that movie with Matt Damon and he goes to Mars? I think it's
Martian.
The Martian.
The Martian. Okay, so pretend that AiOpti is Matt Damon on a planet and we're just making potatoes and we're living and sustaining it. It literally is like this closed loop environment.
That's awesome, because I think in simple terms, as a marketing person, what you're talking about is really about making marketing a conversation between you and the people you're reaching, right? Taking all those efforts that you make, creating that closed loop conversation so that, like you said, it feeds itself. That's something that just excites me as a marketer, to think about us getting to that level.
Yeah. Well, and when you work with destinations, there's only so much budget to go around, and technology or attribution tech stack is the last thing. But if you actually pivot that and look at your data, your first party data, your emails, your insights, all of your first party data sets, without that, we're hoping we're deterministic versus probabilistic. And I think that's the important piece. So we work with, just Santiago and Josh do, on what's the tech stack financially that a client needs to have on board, but what's the real intention? And sometimes there's 2 or 3 of the partners that they're working with that just don't make sense anymore. And you pivot that investment into something else that will give you greater reach, greater performance, and actually greater spend and visitation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So really quick, we've got a question from Lisha I want to ask, and you can just put your hand up if you want to answer it. But it's, with the growing number of AI platforms offering premium subscriptions, how do we determine whether the added cost truly delivers meaningful value, especially for everyday users versus professionals? So jump in, Josh.
That's a great question. And I think it reminds me when we went from Facebook to Instagram to TikTok to Threads to, gosh, all the tools, all the platforms. And everybody's asking, should I jump to that one? Should I use that one? Should I be on that one? And the furthest, most upstream constraint your organization has is people and time resources. So use what works. Use what works, use what you're going to adopt, use what you're aligned with, certainly downstream of policies, as Barbara was wisely mentioning, right? You may not be allowed to use some tools because technically those tools participate in things that don't align with corporate values. Totally okay. You may not be able to do this or that, and all that's okay. So it really is nuanced to whatever it is, but avoid the overwhelm by just picking one and starting there. If that's where you are today, just pick one and start there.
Yeah, and Barbara Santiago, just in that question to go a little deeper, when it comes to how do we know if it's delivering value, right? And I like that Lisha separated out. There's value to us as the professionals doing the work, but then there's value to the people in the public that are everyday users of things. Do you all see that there's specific metrics or specific things where you're like, this is how we're defining value?
Yeah. And at least from my side, one of the key elements that Josh mentioned, and it's also mentioned in media a lot, if it's saving you time. I mean, time is the most valuable resource that nobody can buy or bring back. So test. And also, I also agree a lot with the principle that Josh mentioned. Pick one thing. And in this case, based on the survey you run, Sarah, for most professionals and at an individual level, I'm not talking at the level of the organization, it is ChatGPT. So many times we're really overwhelmed because every day I'm subscribing like to 3 or 4 different AI newsletters, and they bring new things every day. If you try to keep up with that, it's impossible. You would have to live only to keep up with that. So just choose one thing, become as proficient as you can in that one tool, and then fill the gaps with other ones when you start learning what this one tool cannot do. So short answer, how I know if it's providing value. If I can deliver the same thing I was doing before in less time, that's the most valuable thing I can find for myself.
That's awesome. So the next question, and actually we'll just take it to continue following what you were just saying, Santiago. You have worked with a lot of different destinations to blend together kind of productivity and purpose and being practical about their AI tools, which you just touched on. When you're working with destinations, are there sort of top tools or top frameworks that you're using right now? You've built some of your own tourism destination tools out there. Are there things where you're finding like, yes, this 1, 2, or 3 things are really working for people, really helping them save time or make a better use of their resources?
Yeah, definitely. With these 9 tools that I just shared, these are 9 tools that go through a framework of 4 steps. And this is a framework aimed to help people think in a more organized way on how to attract higher value visitors using AI, right? And the purpose of these 9 tools is to take people through these 4 steps any destination or tour operator has to go through. And that's basically, you need to strategize based on what type of visitor you want to bring, right? Strategies, your plan, etc. The second, you need to get some market intelligence to confirm that strategy is correct. Third, you need to start creating the content to speak to that visitor you defined in your strategy. And 4, you need to take that content and transform it either into marketing content or social media content, right? And with that social media content, you start reaching this target visitor, right? So this is the 4-step framework I propose. And these 9 AI tools help people to go through those 4 steps. And there are different purposes of these tools, but the 2 of the tools that they use the most is the first one, which is called the AI Tourism Expert. And basically, people use this to help them create their visitors persona and the strategy to attract this visitors persona, right? And the other one is one called contextual market assessment, which is a tool that helps users collect all information from the destination, from the economic, political, environmental, and psycho-emotional perspective of this target market, and gives them an updated estimation. How likely is it that this destination is able to attract these target markets? And we'll give you some strategies, and two scenarios, a positive and negative one, and give you some strategies to leverage and mitigate each one of those. So these are like very quick examples on how we can use these tools. And what I found is that there is a huge gap between what AI and these simple tools, simple between quotation marks, like ChatGPT, can actually provide to individual professionals, and how professionals are basically using these tools. And I find that most of them are just using ChatGPT to replace Google search, right? So there's a lot more professionals can do. And that's why I developed these very simple tools, which are basically custom GPTs, right? I mean, quite sophisticated in terms of the prompt, but custom GPTs based on my experience that help people go from A to B, from insights to results.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think too, what's amazing about your tools is for folks that I think are just newer, it really helps them become able to even have a better conversation, to the point of we need folks to understand what problems they're solving and to really get clear on how they feel about it, how their team feels about it. I feel like your tools really help people just go through that process too, of figuring out, oh, I have these questions. Oh, I'm realizing it could do this and I hadn't thought about that. So I want to jump to Josh because we have a great question from Wes in the chat. And this sort of dovetails, I think, into the question I was going to ask you, Josh. Wes's question is, what is the perfect AI-centric tech stack for a DMO that really wants to be tech forward, right? And bring more visitors to their destination? And he gave some examples of, is it the CMS, CRM, data warehouse, marketing automation? Is there something where you're seeing, because you work with a lot of different communities and you have your own tech stacks, is there something where you're seeing this is like the direction for people to go? Or is it really that they have to go through that process of figuring it out?
Yeah, I think where I have landed, right? This is just where I've landed based on what I see, based on what I've experienced. When I was on the destination site at Visit Franklin, I had a tech stack that consisted of 18 different separate technologies. And this was over 12 years ago, right? So this was a long time ago. And I built a way of all of these individual tools to communicate with one another so that as a small team with a small budget, I could be as effective as I needed to be. Of course, then I see our industry growing, learning to adopt more tools. And so in the question, there's a lot of different acronyms of tools. And we got acronyms for days. And I so love, Sarah, when you were pushing, going, oh, let's define tech stack a little bit, because we will probably use terms that maybe need to be defined first. And that's a really good thing. So, one of the things that I saw was specifically as a small destination with a small budget, we were constantly being bombarded with a lot of acronyms, bright new shiny objects that are priced at points that do not serve 90% of the market. That's great if you can afford building an $80,000 CMS. Awesome if that's where you're at. That's not where most of us are. That's awesome if you can afford a national agency and spend $5 million on a campaign and it worked for you. That's awesome. That's not where most of us were. And so my heart for communities and community development had ultimately led me roundabout to then building the Main Street Operating System, which is an all-in-one tool that brings all of these together inside a single applications to make life simpler. So what should a destination with a small budget focus on? Responding to the required inquiries that they get, primarily through email marketing. Your CRM data should be valuable to you, not sit in a silo to where nothing else can be done with it or made sense of it, right? Similar to what Barbara was talking about a moment ago. So the Main Street Operating System is a budget-friendly tool specifically to answer Wes's question, and also the other questions about what is possible with people with small budgets. It's the entire purpose of what we've got, how we do it. And so when I think about the question and how to respond to it, it's one, what are your constraints and what is your capacity? If your constraints around budget, okay, then that needs to feed into the decisions that you'll make. And again, BI platforms and all these things are really, they're great. But if they're sitting in a place and you just check the box, meaning here's a line item on my budget that I put toward, and I can talk to my board and say that we've done this. But if real decisions aren't being made from that, then it's not helping you. If it's not actually helping you drive communication at scale, then it's not helping you. So the ability when a visitor is doing their research Your community wants those positive dollars to come to their destination so that when they have emergencies, they call EMS and those folks show up in under 2 minutes. That's what we're talking about here. And when somebody like says, hey, I want to love where I live, and there are parts of where I live that I don't love. Can we make this better? That's why we exist, right? It should be all about spinning the funnel toward that, or the flywheel toward that momentum. So if your tech stack, if the tools you're doing aren't helping you move the needle of the visitor economy where you are, then that's when you should reevaluate it, because that's the purpose of it.
Yeah, and I'll ask Barbara just if you had some thoughts on that same question around, for DMOs, is there something particular that you feel like makes them tech forward? I'm curious just to see what you think about that as well.
I agree with Josh and Santiago, right? Like your technology, if you're in a role and it's not operational, right? You have some tech partners and IT needs that are operational, right? But if you're there and it's part of a sales and marketing budget, to Josh's point, your job, our jobs for destinations is to drive overnight visitation and in-market spend. Bottom line, that is what our mission is. And the investments, it is not a line item and it is not an operational expense. It is an investment. And if you cannot quantify, one, to have an owner of the platform, somebody on your team must manage it, no different than you manage an agency or you manage your email marketing or you manage your visitor center. You need to have accountability and management and oversight of your tech stack and your tech partners. So you have to have ownership and accountability, but then you also need to have return on investment. And to Josh's point, if it's not really delivering against your ultimate goals, right, it just becomes a shiny object, as it's a time suck or it's a financial suck on your budget. So you have to be willing to bifurcate needs versus wants and actually start from the basics. I just worked with a client last week and we literally just said, let's just pretend we have nothing right now. Let's pretend zero-based marketing, zero-based sales and marketing, zero-based budgeting. What do we really need? What do you need? What you need this year might be very different than what you need in year 2 or 3, but you have to start somewhere. And that's what I would encourage. I've seen small destinations do, amazing things with AI with 2 partners, because they don't need all the bells and whistles. Yep. If you're not driving initial value, then the BI impact is, what are you reading? You're not driving anything for your BI, right? So I think it's really assessing needs versus wants and having very honest conversations with yourself to say what we might need is not sexy or cool, but it's actually going to deliver results. And let results be the cool factor for a while. Right.
I was just going to add on to that. It is oftentimes what we find too is it's far simpler than what we think. The simpler solution scales. So less noise allows for more signal, right? If you're understanding that signal to noise ratio as a concept. And so the more tools we get involved, the more partners, the more voices, all of that, all of a sudden we start hearing a lot more friction, experiencing a lot more friction, and hearing a lot more noise, which makes deriving signal a little more difficult. So for example, one of the primary things that every destination should do at an operational level is have a really high performing, functional, deliciously looking website. And then that website should convert new users, giving them permission so that you can, in a omni-channel way, communicate with them repeatedly. Technology is now here where we can do that at scale without human intervention. So that's where you should start. And it's a very simple way to move forward in that.
And Sarah, related to that question, there's also this question from LS who says, how can you be effective in using AI in a small DMO with a limited budget? And this has a lot to do with the example that Barbara just mentioned. These cases of organizations who are 1 or 2 people, like they're not even DMOs, they are tourism departments within a municipality, for example, and it's just 1 person. So something that people just maybe for fear or because they think they don't have time, they have not explored, and that's what I find, is that making your AI help you and act the way you want is now as easy as writing a memo to one of your employees or teammates, right? A memo in human language, you just write a memo in English saying, hey, your role is going to be this, and I want you to deliver this in this format. And for that, you will follow step 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, that's all you need nowadays to create a custom GPT. I mean, which is like a little AI application, right? To help you do amazing things, right? So that's why I mentioned at the beginning that the critical factor now is the critical thinking of the professional managing the AI, right? In that way, you can achieve things like with one of the GPTs that I share, you can do in under 30 minutes what it used to take me 2 weeks to make a market assessment, a contextual market assessment. You make it in 30 minutes for any market around the world. And it used to cost tens of thousands of dollars. Yes, the work for some advisors might be less, but the work for any professional around the world who wants to take the time to learn how to express himself to AI in English in a structured way, that will bring tens or hundreds of people that now will be able to do things that they were not able to do before. So yes, there's a very easy way to become effective using AI with small DMOs. If you become structured and you take your time on learning how to talk to AI to tell it what you want it to do. But even with humans, when you give instructions to humans, you need to repeat things many times over and over again. With AI, it's the same thing, right? But the difference is that it doesn't sleep or ask for vacations.
Yeah, it'll get better and better at a much faster pace than some of us that have to sleep 8 hours a day. I do want to say I really appreciate this because I think one of the things that I want everybody to take away from today, regardless of the size of your destination or the size of your brand or how much your budget is really to understand that if you are a leader in your company, if you are working alongside of your team and you are serving your community, serving your customers, whatever it is, you are the one that knows the most about the problems that you need to solve, the places where you need more efficiency, what it is that the customers actually want. Any experience that you have in actually connecting with those people means that you can take leadership in the conversation around AI and say, this is where I think our first step forward should be. This is where I think we should spend our small budget or our large budget. This is where I think we should spend our time training our staff. I think a lot of times this tech feels so new. People don't feel fully empowered, like they should be the ones making the decisions. And I'm like, yeah, but at the end of the day, you actually are the ones serving the people that you serve. You actually do know them. You know what they want. You know your team. You know what they need. And so we can step into that, even if we're not the people that write the code, right? Josh said, even if we're not the people that create that stuff. So we've got one more question. I know we're wrapping up here. I do want to go ahead and just share my screen so that if you'd like to provide feedback today, you can do that. And like I said, we will pick someone to get a free option to go to Starbucks and hang out if you'd like something. So please go ahead and use your phone, get that QR code, and I will also pop that into the chat momentarily. But the last question I want us to ask, we're going to have to answer this pretty quick, but I would love for us to talk about this. Basically, we've got a question from John about recommendations for learning resources. So if there's any particular things that you all think people should be paying attention to as we wrap up today, the equivalent of AI for dummies is the example. And I see, Josh, you already shared some things, but I'd love for us to wrap up the last few minutes with just how are you keeping up to date with things? How are you staying on top of what we're talking about here? And anybody want to jump in?
Happy to. I think one of the things that I find is most helpful is let's get straight to action. Like having a bias for action is really important. I think anytime we run into these little speed bumps where we may not know something, and I go, we are living in the most incredible technological age in the history of human history, right? So literally every question we have, we can take it to this internet. I can go right to my phone and ask it. And so, John, I would say that's a great practicum for you is literally help me understand AI. Teach me like I'm a 5-year-old, demystify all the acronyms. Literally, I would take exactly what you just posted and I would copy it and paste it into Gemini or ChatGPT or any tool that you want and say, teach me like I'm a 5-year-old. Help me understand this because I'm new. Those are always good things to get the ball moving and a conversation rolling. And so that would be my first recommendation for you.
Yeah, actually, I would like to add up the best place to ask right now about something I don't know is ask AI about AI and how to use AI in the most effective way. In that way, you will learn. And also this paralysis analysis situation that happens, just also try to avoid that. especially with these powerful tools that you get access to for free or just for $20 a month if you want like a pro account for ChatGPT. And by the way, another learning resource that I just shared in the chat is OpenAI Academy. The developers of ChatGPT, they launch an academy, and you have also information very well structured there. So you can reach out to all those resources, AI itself, whatever you have, or OpenAI Academy.
Awesome. And wrapping us up, Barbara?
Yeah, I agree. I think we can all get on that hamster wheel, right, of what's next, right? And you forget to just say, okay, what do we need for the here and now? I think it takes a lot of courage to really assess the 80-20 rule. 80% of your issues come from 20% of your needs analysis. So you have the opportunity to look at your budget, look at how and where you want to invest in technology to drive efficiency, but also performance for your destination, and be okay to say no to certain things, right? I think it's also an opportunity to look at ways to utilize technology for internal need benefit, but also for the destination. Walmart today just announced they did a joint venture with ChatGPT where you can actually buy groceries and buy product from Walmart in ChatGPT, and then they get a cut of the rev share from ChatGPT or vice versa. So it's just really interesting about the consumer sentiment, how consumers are consuming the tourism product and making travel decisions, making purchase decisions, right? And if you can utilize a tech stack that can help you propel further overnight bed tax and in-market spend, and utilizing the platforms like your website and social, some of the other bells and whistles, honestly, just don't really matter. It's not what you spend, it's where you spend it and what you do with it to help achieve the goals of which you need to do as an organization. I love AI, I love machine learning, I love technology, but I also at times wish that I still keep a rotary phone actually on my desk, because back to, I think, Josh's point at the very beginning, human interaction and consumer marketing are all on earth to focus on human movement in and out of our destinations, to and through our destinations. And we don't ever want to lose sight of the human factor, and don't allow technology to keep us so in the clouds that we're not down on earth focusing on personal interactions and really embracing the warmth of what visitors mean to our economies and the people and the communities and the livelihoods that are at stake. I'll just leave it at that.
I really appreciate you wrapping us up on that note, because I think the key is, even though I'm going to continue these conversations, and I just want to thank you all so much for providing your insights. You're all working in different parts of AI, and I think it gives us great wisdom and vision of kind of what's possible and where we're going. But what I love is we all agree on two things. One, it doesn't matter what kind of budget you have or how big your business or your community are. You actually have the ability to tap into these tools. So don't be afraid. You don't have to know it all. None of us know it all. And that still means you can be a leader in this conversation and participate in it. And also, I think all of us really agree it's about the people that we serve. And it's about really connecting not just visitors to us, but our residents to us, and making our teams happier, healthier, and enjoying their work more. So at the end of the day, no matter how much technology we bring through the door, it's going to be about whether or not we're making the choice to actually really care about the people that are involved in the system. So I really appreciate you all being here. Thanks to everyone who's attended today. I'm getting lots of good feedback. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the great questions. And again, I hope you will join us next month on November 12th. You'll get some information about that along with the recording. Thank you, Barbara, Josh, and Santiago. I feel really delighted and honored that you joined us today. And to everyone else, have a great rest of your week, and good luck continuing to explore artificial intelligence.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Sarah.
Great success.
Thank you.